Turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around. Come on.
I have no idea what's happening right now.
Welcome back to the Audit Files. I expose government abuses against everyday Americans to defend your constitutional rights. Shane Sprague, an officer with the Coast Guard, finally purchased his dream vehicle from a South Florida auto dealership. For years, Shane had his sights set on a specific truck, a GMC 1500 AT4X. Through years of hard work and personal sacrifices, he managed to scrape together enough cash for a down payment. After taking it for a spin, he fell in love with it. He handed over a $15,000 cash deposit, handed over the keys to his 2012 Ford Focus trade-in, and financed the remaining balance on the $61,230 sticker price directly through the lot. A staff member at the dealership even took a picture of a beaming Shane next to his new ride, later sending him a text message to express gratitude for his business and to wish him the best. Yet just 10 days down the road, on July 1st, an unmarked F-150 suddenly smashed into his back bumper, and Broward County Sheriff's deputies swarmed him with weapons drawn. As it turned out, the dealership had erroneously flagged his brand new truck as a stolen vehicle.
So the vehicle was reported stolen out of the dealership because it was Broward Volkswagen that basically reported it as stolen.
Instead of doing their due diligence and figuring all of this out before smashing into his vehicle, drawing their weapons, or locking him in an interrogation room for hours, the burden fell entirely on Shane. He was forced to scramble and prove his own innocence to a room full of officers who, even after seeing the truth, still refused to let him walk out the door.
That's the sales guy?
Yeah, this is really good in the truck.
Ali.
Ollie. Hi Shane, real pleasure meeting you today. Thank you for your business, best wishes, and happy murdering Ollie, Broward Volkswagen.
Cool.
This specific video footage was sourced from the Florida State Bodycam channel. The story begins on the 21st of June 2025, the day Shane finally drove his dream vehicle off the commercial lot. He had spent 4 hours that afternoon at Broward Volkswagen, completing the process by digitally signing the entire stack of sales paperwork. The business issued him a fresh registration for the truck, and after processing his down payment, handed over the keys alongside a USB flash drive containing digital duplicates of every document he had authorized. A lot employee even captured a photograph of a smiling Shane sitting behind the wheel of his new ride. He then exited the property and headed home, thrilled to finally be the official owner of the vehicle. Shortly after, the salesman shot Shane a text message to express his appreciation and send him warm regards. For the following 10 days, Shane used his new truck as his daily driver, commuting routinely from his residence in Sunrise, Florida, to his shifts at the Opelika Coast Guard Station. Despite the fact that the dealership possessed Shane's complete contact profile, including his current home address in Sunrise, they never reached out once to flag any problems regarding the transaction. However, on the 1st of July 2025, Shane's reality was turned completely upside down. He had clocked into the Coast Guard base that morning just like any other day. Later that afternoon, he clocked out to attend a scheduled physical therapy session in Broward County, Florida. Once the medical appointment wrapped up, he walked out to the lot, climbed into his truck, and settled into the driver's seat. Within seconds, a completely unmarked Ford F-150 intentionally struck his rear bumper from behind, boxing him squarely into his parking slot. Suddenly, emergency lights began strobing all around him. Caught entirely off guard, he had no idea what was happening until a group of Broward County Sheriff's deputies swarmed his vehicle with weapons drawn. Right there in the open parking lot of the medical facility, under the watchful eyes of random onlookers, the deputies barked orders at Shane to step out, pull up his shirt to prove he wasn't armed, and back up toward them.
Come here. You going. Nobody else in the car? Turn around. Come on. What is going on?
Hey, Jerry, what you got on your side?
Give me an extra pair.
Hey,
Can you get an extra pair?
Hey, anybody else with you? Nobody else with you?
What's happening, guys?
Hey, go driver's side approach, Jerry. Got it? I'm going down. Going driver's side approach. Got it?
I got nothing on me.
Actually, we're gonna put you in here.
Wherever you guys want me.
Yeah. We searched.
I'll walk in real quick.
The entire ordeal left him deeply humiliated in full view of random onlookers and the medical clinic staff. Without having broken a single law, he was aggressively packed into the rear seat of a patrol unit. Despite Shane repeatedly asking what was going on, the deputies kept him completely in the dark, refusing to explain why he had been placed in cuffs or why he was suddenly locked in the back of a police cruiser.
Can you guys tell me what's going on?
So the lead detective's gonna come over here and explain everything to you. Just give us a second. Right here. Okay. You got it? Is that the one that comes out to the truck?
Yep. He's a reason. Might be.
He's the
One that
comes out to.
Okay. Hey, this is a brand new truck. I'm active duty Coast Guard. Yeah, I'm the maintenance officer for the Coast Guard station in Oklahoma. So I have no idea what's happening right now.
I'm trying to get the main detective to come here.
I don't want to like jump the gun and explain everything to you when I'm the detective that's going to do that. So I don't
He's
want
gonna explain everything to you.
I don't want to interfere with you.
Right now.
Yeah, he'll make more sense of what's going on. Like I said, I wish I could just go ahead and tell you, but I don't want to step on the toes.
Arrested? Am I being detained?
Right now you're just detained, pending an investigation, so you're not arrested. They're gonna come over here, they're gonna talk to you, they're gonna tell you everything that's going on. So that you can understand, because I know you're confused right now.
Yeah.
They'll come over here and they'll explain everything to you.
Yeah, whatever you guys need. Just wish you guys wouldn't hit my truck.
What's that?
I said I wish you guys wouldn't hit my truck. I just got it. Yeah, I just got the text message that my payment stuff just started.
For the truck?
Yeah.
Yep. 19? Okay. Alright. Second dress is the ultimate point. Did you make it to the 21 or was that the wrong? No. What's that? Okay. Alright. We'll take you back to the office more than likely so you can talk to them there formally and they can explain it.
We're just trying to see if you're gonna come here real quick before we take you, or...
But you're not being charged with anything right now. You're not under arrest for any crime right now. You're just being investigated for something wrong with that.
Something that's been going on. I'm so lost right now.
Shane expresses that he is completely in the dark right now, but frankly, he isn't the only one wandering blindly. The Broward County Deputies keep insisting to Shane that he isn't officially under arrest, claiming instead that he is merely being held temporarily for an active investigation. However, both the video and audio evidence paint a completely different picture. There is absolutely no investigation happening here. What we are actually witnessing is a full-blown arrest. Under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, taking someone into custody like this requires either a valid judicial warrant or, in the case of a warrantless arrest, solid probable cause. This means the law enforcement officers who bound this man's hands, locked him in a cage, and started searching through his personal belongings would need to possess trustworthy information and a reasonable belief that Shane had actually committed a crime. Instead, the footage reveals that these deputies don't have the slightest clue what is actually happening. Shane, on the other hand, is the only one trying to inject reality into the situation. He explicitly tells them that this is his brand new vehicle, that he serves as a U.S. Coast Guard officer, and that he has absolutely no clue why they are targeting him. He is entirely baffled because he has done nothing unlawful. If this were a legitimate detention aimed at discovering whether Shane had broken the law, a competent officer would actually pay attention to his statements after all. Those are what we call investigative leads. Because they chose to ignore him completely, there is zero doubt that this was an immediate warrantless arrest executed without the necessary probable cause.
Your time is on, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you just had some money, your phone, and your wallet, okay? I'm gonna leave the book back and everything. Okay.
You guys gonna take my truck or how? I think my son's up in, I think he's in Boca. So I don't have anybody to come get my truck.
Okay, I don't know what's happening with your truck right now. Just give the detectives 2 minutes. They're, like I'm saying, they're gonna turn everything to you.
Yeah, I know.
The deputy rifled through the vehicle, tossing his private possessions around before ultimately abandoning them inside the cab and calling a tow truck to haul the pickup away. Shane was then driven to a nearby precinct, locked inside a holding cell, and instructed to wait. Throughout this entire delay, no one bothered to explain why he was being held in custody. Eventually, he was moved into an interrogation room to face investigators from the Doral Police Department, who finally clued him in, explaining that the entire ordeal stemmed from his new vehicle. They informed him that the Doral Volkswagen dealership had officially flagged his truck as stolen.
All right. So obviously we need to talk to you in reference to the incident for today, okay? I'm gonna be honest with you, it's about your car, okay? What I want to know is how you got the car, when you got the car, by what means. Just give me the rundown, how everything started with you.
I'm super nervous. So, go.
Take your time.
All right, Doral Volkswagen.
Okay.
Last Saturday. Okay, well, you know around what time? I think I finished around 2 p.m.
Okay. Okay, and what happened there?
Drove off, went to my girlfriend's house.
Okay, let's not fast forward too much. So, you went to Doral Volkswagen with the intention...
Oh, to purchase a new vehicle.
Okay, and then what happened after that?
Showed up, they came out, I said, hey, I had that vehicle particular picked out. I called in the morning.
Who'd you speak with?
The first time I spoke with just a regular person, but then when I got there, Ollie was my sales representative.
Is that a nickname or is that his full name?
I think that's his full name. That's what his business card says.
Okay.
And then I also spoke with the general service manager. His first name is Chris.
Okay.
And he's a friend of a friend of mine's mom.
Okay.
So Chris kind of helped work the deal. Test drove the truck, was exactly what I wanted. Pulled back in, they looked over, my son had a Ford Focus that I was trading in.
Okay.
They looked over the Ford Focus, they did their numbers on trade-in stuff. I didn't really want anything for the Focus. I think they came back with $1,500 for that. I was like, yep, I want the truck.
Okay.
They were very quick on the deal. We agreed on a price.
Any documents were given?
Yeah.
You have the sales documents?
In my house, yeah.
They're at your house?
Mm-hmm.
And the sales documents have everything for the truck?
Everything, yeah.
Okay.
It was actually really, I would say, easier because I hadn't bought a car in, 15 years. I drive an old Tacoma that my son now drives. I don't know if any of you guys are Tacoma fans, but I almost cried when I had to get to him.
I can imagine.
But yeah, it was super easy. Everything was online. I have a disc with like all the paperwork.
Okay, so they gave you a disc?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a USB thumb drive.
Do you remember who exactly was the sales representative? I know you said Ali, but any other,
Ali.
Any nicknames or any last name, business card, anything?
I have his business
You
card.
have his business card?
Yeah, I have his business card.
Okay, so then you did the documents for the purchase of the vehicle, and then what happened after that?
Did the documents, went to the, what I call finance manager.
Okay.
Went to finance manager, did all of our financing. Had some issues transferring over some money. That was kind of a pain, so I ended up having, because I put $15,000 down.
Okay.
So I transferred over like 5,000 on my American Express, and then like 7,000 through USAA, which was like my limit.
Okay. Question for you, sorry to interrupt. What was the sticker price on the car?
61.9.
Was it brand new?
It's used.
Used? How many miles?
22,000.
Okay.
Put like 400 on it, I think.
Okay.
If that. I put that on there.
You drove it today to the Coast Guard Bay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yep. And then back to physical therapy.
Okay. You're recovering from an ailment?
Yes.
Okay.
I hurt my back doing deadlifts.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. So the reason why you're in this position, okay? So the vehicle was reported stolen out of the dealership. Okay. It could be a miscommunication on their end because it was Doral Volkswagen that basically reported it as stolen.
Yeah.
So you got the tag from the dealer, and they told you they were going to transfer the tag.
Yeah, the registration's in the glove box.
So the tag that was on the truck today.
Was on my Focus.
Okay, so it was previously on your car.
Yeah, registered.
Okay, so it's your tag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was on a Focus previously?
Mm-hmm. 2012 Ford Focus.
Okay. As far as payments, you haven't paid the truck? You haven't paid for anything yet?
So I paid the $15,000 cash that is paid for my down payment.
Okay.
And I just got my notification today that it's on my phone. I can show you on the text message that my payments are getting ready to start.
Okay. And as part of the purchase agreement, was there any documentation that you had to present after you drove the vehicle off the lot, like the next day or the week after?
No.
Nothing? So
Nothing.
They signed, you already signed, and the truck was yours?
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, because on Saturday we couldn't get the full transfer done, I called the finance manager back on
What's his name?
Tuesday.
Mr. Sprague, shocked by the accusations, told the detectives that he bought the truck and he had proof on his phone.
I don't have my phone.
Number, bring it.
What's
Number, bring the phone.
yeah, bring my phone. Yeah. Frank is the service manager.
The tag that you have on the truck now, that's the tag that was on the Focus?
That was the tag that was on the Focus.
Have you ever owned a Chevy?
No.
No?
I mean a Blazer, like when I was in high school.
What color?
Black.
At some point while he was talking to the detectives, a detective told Shane that the truck registered to him was still on Doral Volkswagen's lot and that he had driven off with the wrong truck.
So the tag that was on your truck, Mary, comes back to a Chevy pickup. Okay. And that Chevy pickup's under your name.
Should be that Chevy pickup. Or that GMC pickup.
No. So the tag that's attached to the truck now, when we run that tag, it comes back to a Chevy pickup under your name.
What?
Yeah.
So,
It never belonged to, was never attached to, well, I don't want to say it was never
do you
attached
mind
to.
just looking up the...
Eventually, the detectives gave Mr. Brake his phone and he showed them the text messages that he had exchanged with Ali, the Doral Volkswagen salesperson. And that also showed the license plate of this AT4X truck.
Oh, here's some more messages. This was from my my sales guy.
That's the sales guy?
Yeah, this is here. You're leaving in the truck.
Ali?
Ollie.
Okay.
Can I see?
Yeah.
That's from the dealer. Leave it in the truck.
Yeah. Can we call him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. I think he's the old dude that works in there. He's been there like 20 years.
So, one detective calls Ali, who was the salesperson who sold him the truck, and he exits the interview room.
Hi, is this Ali? How you doing, Ali? This is Sergeant Holden.
Oh, yeah, here's
They're offering.
the tag on the truck.
That's when they put it on the dealership? Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Shane. Real pleasure meeting you today. Thank you for your business. Best wishes and happy murdering Ollie, Doral Volkswagen.
Cool.
And this was, alright, just so we got it straight, June 21st. So that's 2 Saturdays ago, right?
Let me verify. Yeah, Saturday before last.
Yeah, 2 Saturdays. Yeah, I think the truck has got a low jack on it too. Which is probably how you guys found me at Baylor.
At this point, more than an hour has ticked by since Shane was cornered at gunpoint. He has cooperated fully and answered every single one of their questions. The real irony here is that throughout this entire interrogation, the only actual investigating being done is by Shane himself using his own cell phone to prove to these self-proclaimed detectives that they are dealing with a massive administrative screw-up. So, did they immediately uncuff him, offer a sincere apology, and rush out to secure an arrest warrant for the dealership staff member who filed a fraudulent police report? No, of course they didn't.
Yeah, so basically, this is just a formality. At the end of the day, we don't know what we have until we investigate a little further. That's why we interview. Once we verify all the details.
In reality, this is precisely how the justice system is designed to function. The individuals carrying the title of detective are legally required to conduct a baseline investigation before they ambush a citizen in public, dragging them away in front of their medical providers and inflicting total humiliation. That exact investigative process is why law enforcement is supposed to gather verifiable facts first, and then present that evidence to an independent, neutral magistrate who can objectively evaluate it for legitimate probable cause. I mean, the sheer level of laziness and incompetence required to do absolutely zero background checking is staggering. Instead, they opted to ram a man's vehicle, hold him at gunpoint, and haul him back to their office in chains simply because they were too indifferent to look into the matter on site. As a result, they forced him to clear up an administrative blunder in an interrogation room that could have been completely sorted out in 5 minutes at the scene, sparing him from this entire nightmare.
There's nothing to hide in this one. I mean, clearly we're going through, just going, this is, what I don't understand though, is like the tag thing.
That's we'll talk about that after. We just need to verify. Where'd he go? He's on the phone with the sales rep.
Yeah, so there's a car points and then there's arm notes.
Okay, so basically seems that they. Okay.
It sounds like they messed up.
Yeah.
It was only after taking a look at Shane's text messages and getting in touch with Allie that the investigators finally clued into the fact that they had a major mistake on their hands. They pointed out to Shane that the license plate affixed to his AT4X didn't match the vehicle's registration system. Ultimately, however, the detectives verified the paperwork proving Shane had indeed bought the AT4X directly from Doral Volkswagen back on the 21st of June 2025. They then gave him the address of the impound lot where his vehicle had been taken and finally let him go.
They basically, is this your phone or his phone?
That's his phone.
Okay.
And then if you swipe to the Carfax, it comes back to a 1500.
Yeah.
It is a 1500.
Yeah, but it's like a diesel, like lower model. Because that's a AT4. This is coming back to.
That's an AT4X, man.
My bad.
So yeah, it seems like once
So we can smile a little bit.
Yeah.
at this point,
Please don't beat me up, man.
No. Hopefully we didn't treat you too rough.
I want to hug when I'm done.
We'll talk after this.
Maybe some coffee.
I got some advice after this.
Yeah, once he's done with it, he's actually talking to the sales rep once he comes back.
Okay. I'll just tell you straight up, you could have sued them.
Well, the script has flipped completely, and now the police are pivoting straight into cover your behind territory, ready to pin the entire blame on the car lot. As the situation developed, Shane actually moved forward with a formal lawsuit against Doral Volkswagen, evaluating the Bodycam footage alongside the specific assertions detailed in that complaint. It is incredibly clear that the business brought every piece of that litigation upon themselves. However, as we have analyzed across a variety of other situations on this channel, fact that an employee or bystander phones 911 to file a report, whether accurate or totally fabricated, does not automatically saddle the business with legal liability for the actions and tactical maneuvers law enforcement executes based on that external tip. Consequently, even if the lot workers carelessly, recklessly, or purposefully misreported Shane's brand new pickup as a stolen asset belonging to them, that initial call does not magically validate the deputy's choice to slam into his rear bumper, extract him at gunpoint, process him into custody, and subject him to a lengthy interrogation at the precinct. A simple alert coming out of a car dealership, a big box store, or an unhinged caller is fundamentally not equivalent to the legal threshold of probable cause required for a warrantless arrest. At most, a third-party tip provides the baseline of reasonable suspicion required to temporarily halt an individual and look into the matter a bit deeper. That is precisely the path they should have taken here, especially considering that administrative screw-ups like this likely occur constantly. We simply don't see police forces across the country immediately weaponizing their cruisers as battering rams every single time a clerical error pops up, completely blinding themselves to the glaring signs that the driver is entirely innocent. Therefore, it is my view that alongside suing the dealership, Shane should have dragged every single officer involved in this train wreck into federal court as well. 27. The absolute worst element of this entire situation is how the authorities handled a basic property report regarding a missing vehicle from a commercial lot. This wasn't a violent, armed carjacking report. Yet, with zero outside verification and a total absence of common sense, they jumped straight to a high-risk, violent tactical stop, smashing his truck and training loaded firearms directly at him. Nothing in their system indicated that Shane was carrying a weapon, dangerous, or presenting an active threat to the safety of those deputies to justify threatening him with lethal force. That tactical decision alone constitutes a clear Fourth Amendment violation. The dealership didn't orchestrate that specific response, they didn't request it, and they completely lacked the legal authority to command police officers to act that way though. Looking at how policing is done today, maybe they should have anticipated that exact outcome. Drop your perspectives in the comment section below, particularly if you work in law enforcement. How often do you run into administrative data blunders from auto dealers managing high-volume transactions all day long? How many times have you untangled one of those errors without needing to ram a vehicle or point a firearm at an innocent civilian?